Working meeting for the schedule for Thursday. We have call to order, roll call, invocation by Allison Cornell, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Jackson. Still got that? Please don't sing it. We have a couple of awards and presentations. Small Business of the Year, Franco's Barbershop, and also proclamation of National Business Week for Tony Boone. Got you, sir. And we have our city manager report, sir.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. Most of my report is still focused on what's going on out in the streets. Annual street maintenance all over town is in progress and scheduled to be complete by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Garden Avenue is going to be underway starting next week and should be completed December 2025. We have folks and the contractor going out to advise the business owners of what's going to be happening there currently. The reconstruction from Avenida Escuela to State Route 90 on Martin Luther King Parkway is also scheduled to begin next week, and we're doing the same thing there with the businesses going out and letting them know what's going on. And then finally, the shared use path on State Route 92 from Avenida Cochise to Foothills Drive, which is funded by the Federal Transit Administration. Bid meeting is scheduled for May 20th with bids set to open on June 6th. And that's all I have for now. I'm sure I'll have some more for Thursday.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you. And we'll go to our public hearings. Resolutions 2025-035. Mr. Pregler, staff report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This is a request for a conditional use permit located at 100 South 2nd Street. So True Vine Ministries is proposed to locate a new place of worship at 100 South 2nd Street, which is located within the Midtown Plaza. Now, the mission of the church, of course, is to provide a place of worship, provide support services for those in need, and engage in outreach programs that enhance the well-being of Sierra Vista residents. The applicant has stated that this particular site is an ideal location for the church for several reasons. One, that the property is financially feasible, allowing the allocation of additional resources toward the community outreach and assistance. Secondly, that the location provides accessible and convenient services to the West End community. And third, the proximity to local organizations enables collaboration to effectively provide aid to those in need and support local community programs and small businesses. So Development Code, Section 151.22.006, does require conditional use permits for a place of worship in all zoning districts, hence the purpose of this request. Now, prior to occupancy, the applicant will need to meet all building code requirements. And you can see in the map here the location, the specific building that the church will be located in. So, no conditional use shall be recommended for approval or receive a final action of approval unless a positive finding based upon substantial competent evidence is made on each of the following. Number one, that characteristics of the site are suitable for the proposed use, considering the size, shape, location, topography, existence of improvements, and natural features. Two, the proposed development is timely, considering adequacy of transportation systems, public facilities, and services existing or planned for the area affected by the use. Three, the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in any manner that substantially limits, impairs, or precludes the use of surrounding properties for the primary uses listed in the district. And finally, the proposed use satisfies those goals, objectives, and policies of the general plan that are applicable to the proposed use. So staff analyzed the four criteria and has provided the following analysis. Number one, the surrounding properties and uses are commercial. The place of worship, which functions as a commercial use, will have minimal impacts on adjacent uses, as many of the businesses will be closed during the worship services, which are typically on Sundays, starting at 11 a.m. Christian education will also be offered, occurring on Tuesday, starting at 6 p.m., again after the closure of many of the businesses. Secondly, the site is adequately parked for a place of worship. According to the Development Code, the minimum number of parking spaces for a place of worship is calculated by measuring the total square feet of the main sanctuary divided by 50. Now, the main sanctuary is approximately 1,000 square feet, which would require no more than 20 parking spaces. Now, based on a site inspection and aerials and on the applicant's submission, there are 14 parking spaces and a capacity for additional 12 spaces in the parking lot, which more than meets the parking demand for a place of worship. The applicant has further stated that the church averages 30 to 35 members each Sunday. Staff next reviewed the place of worship's ability to serve. There is access to the shopping center from 2nd Street. According to the ITE trip generation manual, the average Sunday vehicle trips for a place of worship per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area is 31 vehicle trips. With the gross floor area of the main sanctuary, approximately 1,000 square feet, the average vehicle trips on Sunday will be less than 31 vehicles, which can be accommodated by South 2nd Street. Additionally, there is an 8-inch sewer line in Bartow Drive, which can handle the existing sewer connections in the building. Now, the use's compatibility with the surrounding area was reviewed next. Again, with the adjacent properties being commercial, the businesses will be closed during the service hours, so there will be minimal impact on the surrounding area. Finally, the request was reviewed to determine compliance with the general plan. The request does meet Goal 1-1 and Goal 13-3. So the P&Z Commission heard this item at their April 29th meeting. The Commission unanimously recommended approval of the request. Notification of the dates and the times of the public hearings were mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the property. A public notice sign was placed on the property, and an ad was inserted into the Herald. The city has not received any comments regarding this request. This does conclude staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments on that conditional use? All right. And we'll go to Resolution 2025-036. Staff report, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again, and members of council. As you are well aware, the Community Development Department periodically reviews the Development Code to identify ways the city can improve efficiencies, clarify requirements, provide flexibility, and reduce unnecessary regulations. The proposed code amendments reflect these goals. Although there are many formatting and organizational changes proposed, staff will be only addressing the substantive code amendments today. Now, the first amendment relates to construction staging areas and temporary field offices. The city has received requests from utility companies to store equipment and material or install temporary construction trailers or other temporary structures on vacant sites during the duration of a construction project. Now, the current temporary use language does not address these situations. Therefore, the city created a definition of construction staging area and temporary field office to address these types of temporary uses. A construction staging area is defined as a site used for the temporary storage of construction-related equipment and materials. Temporary field office would be defined as a construction trailer or other approved temporary structure used as a field office in conjunction with a construction project or other use approved by the city on government property. Now, the development standards for these types of uses include required screening, reduction of public nuisances such as dust, and timeline requirements. The second set of amendments relates to the sign code. First, the city is proposing an increase in sign height of up to 25% for the inclusion of architectural features. Now, no advertising can be included within this 25%. For example, if a sign is 10 feet in height, an additional 2.5 feet can be used for architectural features. The next change allows reductions or waivers to the 5-foot sign setback for existing signs and existing developed sites, where site constraints make the setback impractical. The request for reduction or waiver of setback will be approved administratively after an assessment of the site constraints. The next sign amendment expands the list of exempt signs to include murals, statues, window signs, interior reader boards, interior signs not viewed from a public street, directional signs, real estate signs, panel replacement signs, and corporate or company logo flags. Now, although exempt from sign permits, the signs will still need to meet their dimensional and duration standards as necessary. Now, other sign amendments revise the standards for portable signs, which emphasize and require aesthetic and durability standards. For example, portable signs are required to be professionally made or neatly hand-painted and must be resistant to weather conditions. Next, standards were created for feather banners. And I have an example of what the feather banners look like up on the screen here. These include a maximum display time of 21 days, 4 times per calendar year, a maximum area of 20 square feet, a maximum height of 10 feet. They need to be located on the property requesting the sign, and the number is limited to 1 per 100 linear feet of street frontage or up to 6 per frontage. Finally, the definition of directional sign was revised for clarity, and the definition of permanent sign was added. Now, this definition for permanent sign requires design standards for permanent signs to help reduce the usage of non-durable materials. Basically, not allowing banners to be used as permanent signs on buildings. So moving away from the signs, the next topic is setbacks for semi-detached structures in single-family residential zoning districts. Now, the matrix of allowed uses permits semi-detached single-family residences in the SFR zoning district. However, the current language requires a 5-foot setback on both sides of a semi-detached residence. Now, of course, looking at the photo here, obviously there's a 0 lot line for one side of the home, and then there is room for setback on the other side. So, to allow for semi-detached homes, an amendment is proposed stating that the 5-foot setback is only allowed on the end unit. Okay, then the next set of amendments relate to the landscaping, walls, screening, and buffer, which relate specifically to landscaping for new commercial and industrial sites. So, in the landscape section, revisions were made to ensure that landscape areas within a developed commercial site contribute meaningfully with the natural and built environment, while promoting water efficiency, native plant diversity, and long-term sustainability. To that end, one such revision requires that 25% of the landscaped area, which is only 15% of the entire site, must be shaded within 10 years of planting by mature canopy trees. Now, right now, there is a requirement that requires a street tree requirement. Every 50 feet, there has to be a tree that is planted. In this particular case, we're not requiring the location of the canopy of the trees. That has to be located somewhere on the site. Another amendment requires a minimum of 3 different species of trees and 5 different species of shrubs or cacti be used. Now, the landscaping section currently requires no more than 20% of one species be planted, but it does not address the number of different species. The amendment will ensure that there is a diverse landscape area. Now, additional amendments in this section include requiring permeable hardscapes such as decomposed granite within all non-vegetated areas. Next, landscape rock is to be earth tone in color, a minimum diameter of ½ inch and a minimum depth of 2.5 inches. There should be a minimum of 1 tree and 2 shrubs per landscape island, and currently the landscape code only requires 1 tree per island, and of course the amendment would change this to require the 2 shrubs in the islands as well. And then in the buffering and screening section, the minimum buffer chart, which shows the required distances between zoning districts, has been removed, and the buffer distances are now included within the individual zoning district sections. Now, the reason for this change for the relocation is to include all buffer dimensional standards in one location, helping developers to locate the development standards. Now, let's discuss residential conversions. Now, in 2016, the city amended the development code to permit multifamily buildings, such as apartments, in the general commercial zoning district. Now, the amendment, of course, reflected the trend of converting hotels into apartments. Now, the development code currently requires a minimum lot area of 1,740 square feet per unit and a maximum number of 48 units per building. These density and unit ratios often conflict with existing commercial buildings looking to keep the same number of units following a conversion. To resolve this conflict, staff is proposing amendments requiring the owner of a commercial building to apply for a conditional use permit, in which a concept plan identifying property development standards such as density can be reviewed and ultimately approved by City Council. This process allows for an avenue to address these density issues and eliminates the need for a variance. And then finally, the final amendment addresses setbacks for attached carports and covered patios and manufactured home parks. The city has received requests for the construction of attached carports and covered patios within manufactured home parks. However, the width of the spaces and the size of the manufactured homes prevent some carports or covered patios from meeting the minimum 5-foot setback requirement. As a result, staff proposes reducing the building setback for carports and covered patios from 5 feet to 3 feet, which is the equivalent setback as the detached accessory structure. Now, an assessment of the manufactured parks indicated that many of the existing carports and covered patios are currently 3 feet to the space line, so the amendment would bring many of the carports and covered patios into compliance. Now, the fire marshal and the building official support the amendment with the caveat that the carports and covered patios need to be made of fire-resistant materials to prevent the spread of fires. And lastly, staff is also proposing to remove language in this same section allowing detached garages and carports to be located in front of a principal structure. Now, this prohibition on accessory structures and placement is consistent with other zoning districts and is not applicable in most situations because the carports are generally located in the side yards. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard these items at their March 25th and April 29th meeting. There was unanimous approval of all amendments. This does conclude staff support, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments?
I've got a comment.
There.
I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but in the requested action, it says approval of resolution 2025-035, and I think that should be 036.
Okay, we can make that change.
Just a typo, basically.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
I appreciate the second breakdown because 65 pages of all those line throughs was a lot to go through. But
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks for making it a little bit easier to digest and for us to explain when people ask about it. I haven't seen the only one the major change is removing the front structures in front of so like a carport in front of someone's house or basically garage looking thing in the front of someone's house, correct?
Right, so this is specifically to manufactured home parks.
Right.
That's correct. So that language is being removed, and we're going to allow it as it is now along in the side yards of the lots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir. And we'll move on to resolutions 2025-037, staff report. Chief Jones.
Thank you, sir. Member Cobb, members of council, the resolution for your approval is a request by Service and Fire Medical Services for grant funding through the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. The items requested are extrication tools, car seats, and associated employee-related expenses. Authorization to submit the projects for consideration by the Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety comes in the form of reimbursable grants from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Grant money for this project has been put into the budget for this year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Good to see this grant every year or whenever it comes around, especially for the car seats. Obviously used a lot by people in our community, especially if we seem to have a lot of car accidents in our area recently. But if your car seat's involved in a car accident, it's no longer serviceable. You need to replace it, and it's a good avenue for that to happen if they're available to go to the fire station and get one. Along that, too, is with the child seat techs that are open to fire and PD, right? Another great program because I forgot the percentage number, but it's a high percentage of people that put them in the wrong way. So I'm glad that program is still going.
Yeah, I put mine in wrong.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, sir. And then we'll call to the public and comments and questions from the council and adjournment. And for tonight, Our first presentation will be an update on the Sierra Vista Golf Course and Range and future renovations. Bam!
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's always fun to come and talk to you guys about all the fun things going on in Sierra Vista. And of course, one of the hot topics is our wonderful, beautiful Sierra Vista Golf Center. I have a pretty short update. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And just kind of telling you where we're at with some of the decisions that were made and where we're at with things like the pool closure, tennis courts, stuff like that. So we did an official spring kickoff at the Sierra Vista Golf Center on March the 8th, and we broke the parking lot. It was awesome. We had a lot of the public come out. The parking lot was full. We did have a contingency for folks that couldn't find a place to park. We had staff kind of guiding them there. But I think as the public were kind of coming and going, it wasn't a really huge issue, but it was really fun. I think a lot of the neighbors came out as well, which was really great to see. And a lot of people in the community that some of them didn't even know that we had a golf center in the community, which I always find fascinating when I run into people and they think that we built a new golf course. And I'm like, no, it's always been there. And some folks have actually lived here. I met a lady who lived here for 15 years and had no idea there was a golf course in the middle of town. So I invited her out as well and encourage everyone to come out and see all the offerings there and everything that's going on. So this was really a first look of the new bay ranges that has been, kind of the talk of the town, our own little slice of Topgolf, even though we can't call it Topgolf. But it is a Topgolf-like experience in our community, which is really, really cool. I think one of the things that I've gotten the most feedback on here is the way that it allows children and other folks who may not have had any kind of exposure to golf in the past. This gives them a way to, kind of try it and not take it so seriously. You don't have to be a good golfer to golf. I'm a golfer and I have a 24 handicap. So I'm your traditional recreational golfer, but there is something to be said about an activity that will bring all generations together. This is for full families. You can go up there on Sunday afternoons. I think after church, a lot of families are really partaking of this. Our partner in Paradigm has been doing a wonderful job doing community outreach, especially to children. They offer free children's golf lessons on a weekly basis, and then they kind of do a 1 month on and then a couple weeks off and then another month on, but they're getting some wonderful support and exposure. We're seeing the families coming back, kids actually going out on the course with some of their families, and more women actually picking up a golf club and giving it a try too. So they'll continue to have more programming. The city is helping with some programming as well, just to bring some more exposure and some more folks from the community. I don't have any numbers from this event. I tried to pull them on Placer, but because it was such a small window of time, it wouldn't return the data. I'm going to keep trying on that, though, and if I do get the numbers, I'll make sure that it shows up for you in an executive report in the future. So what Paradigm's doing right now is really concentrating on our driving range and entertainment venue. They have some plans going on where you'll see more additional signage, things from the front that will hopefully bring some exposure to that they're open in the back, because when you're still driving through the property right now in the evening time, it's hard to tell if anything's open because everything that's going on in the back. So our partner's taking care of that, but you'll see things like signage and stuff changing in the future. We've also ordered the replacement of the monument signs out in front of the property. And you'll see that with the Sierra Vista Golf Center logo, the former Pueblo del Sol sign will be coming down. That was supposed to happen on the 2nd, but I don't think it has yet, and I didn't get a chance to drive by this morning. So I will be checking that tonight and giving our friends at High Desert a call and see when that's coming. But that will be good too, because it will bring some exposure into the front of the property. I've also kind of been talking to Matt, and I need to talk more with Sharon about how we can maybe get some directional signage into the property as well, because of its location kind of being tucked into a neighborhood. It's difficult for people to know really where to go when they're driving on our arterial streets or our major highway system. So what we did at the driving range, we had those horrible floodlights that were really bad for the neighbors. We kind of abandoned those. Those were sent back, and we're getting some lower level floods for other portions of the property. And those have been replaced out downrange. They kind of look like lightsabers in the pictures. And if those of you have been out there, they're really cool. They're LED vertical lights, and there's no floodlights at all, like casting anything down over those. So you can kind of see, not the best picture, it's from my iPhone, but you can kind of see where the line is, where the light is, and then you got to have something to aim at in the evening time. They did start their night driving range the first week of April, so they're in it. They've been doing that for about a month. They sell their last bucket at 9 o'clock, and once they're done, they're done. Sometimes the lights stay on if somebody's got to do the picking, just so they're not out there in the pitch dark. So the employees, once they're done picking the final balls from the evening and cleaning up, that's when lights are out and everybody goes home. Right now, they're seeing a steady uptick in patrons. It's very much a grassroots effort, trying to get people to know that, you know, this is a place that they're welcome to come. Their current restaurant operations, their normal bar and restaurant operation is open from 7 to 7 daily right now, 7 days a week. And then they have this other picture there that looks like a hollowed out trailer. That's actually what it was. It's actually a portable pro shop. They've converted that into a bar down at the range. And they sell hot dogs and snacks and T-shirts and has full bar operations. You can buy your buckets of balls there in your in-range system right there from the covered driving range area. So folks don't have to walk all the way up to the clubhouse. That opens, don't hold me to this, but I think 1 to 9 every day right now. There's somebody out there doing that. So just kind of continuing on with that, what folks have seen too is they have a simplified menu in their restaurant. The food is very good. I think I've had every single solitary thing on their menu at least once. Very fresh, very quick. If you're there and need a quick lunch, they can do that for you. Very good prices. They are still doing banquets. They're having more weddings than ever, according to Connie Sexton, which is their director of restaurant and bar. They love holding events. They want people to come out and have events there. They've had a couple of events also in the evenings utilizing the driving ranges with a couple of businesses that have had employee evenings for, just bonding and hanging out together after work. And I think last weekend, Lori's Place actually had a fundraiser out there as well, which was great to see. So that's also helping get the word out that they're open and ready for business. And then finally, I just have a couple of pictures here of the pool and the tennis courts. We were able to get very competitive pricing by actually removing the tennis courts, which I don't know if you can tell from one of the pictures here, but there was no base whatsoever. It was just pretty much dirt and rocks underneath. So we were able to pretty easily have that taken out. And then we actually used that debris to fill in the pool and then use sand to reach compaction. So both of those projects have been completely finished. We are talking to our partners right now just to add some beautification. We're talking about putting some lower grade, not what you would see like artificial turf up at the driving range, but a lower grade that's used for recreational type things, like putting that on top of the pool area or some more decorative rock just to make it look more finished. And then Paradigm is talking about what to use with that space, maybe putting some things like some cornhole and some more tables and chairs out there, offer some more outside dining options while we're trying to figure out, really where we're going with the property. Some additional lighting out there, very low level. We have neighbors very close there on Lopez Link, so nothing to be, crazy, not bringing the party really right up to their doorstep there. But they are looking at just ways to bring some visibility of being open and expanding their services out front. We're also leaving the back gates of the swimming pool area open now during the days because there are restrooms there in that bathhouse portion. And that's been really appreciated by folks that are patrons that are using the driving range. They don't have to walk so far to get to a restroom. So that actually kind of worked out in our favor. Staff has also removed some of the large evergreens that were on the bushes that were kind of on the backside of the swimming pool area, kind of blocking the electrical boxes and things like that there. And our partners are looking at how to potentially increase the capacity of the existing putting greens in that space as well, maybe combining them together and doing a small putting course in that space. But our operators are still looking at that as well. And then Tony's going to talk about the clubhouse update.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you. All right, Mayor and Council, we've been working with the architect on the clubhouse. Quite frankly, it's taken longer than we had liked and we had hoped. But on the positive side, it's actually been given us time to allow the significant changes, whether it be the tennis courts or the pool. And then it's also given us time to work with Paradigm as far as the operations go. So in a way, it's kind of a good thing. But to be honest, it's definitely over time, kind of as we've gone along. Really, the biggest significant challenge is the building itself. And I know we went in with the intent to look at seating for 150 to 200 people in the building. Interestingly enough, I ran into Mayor Tom Hessler a couple weeks ago, and he was there when it was put together. And he looked at me and goes, Tony, I told him it wasn't big enough. And then if they were going to build it this way, they needed to allow it to be expanded in the future. So the way the structural engineer looked at the building and then looked at the actual tile roof, trying to expand off of that building would be significantly expensive because of the way it's designed. So Mayor Hessler was exactly right on both accounts. So I did congratulate him for that, but we're dealing with it in 2025. So kind of where we're at is we're still working our way through with the architect. The intent is to allow as much seating in the building as we can. The latest versions, and we will bring the final version to you for your consideration, is several different breakout rooms, so you could have multiple clubs, multiple events inside the clubhouse, while they'll still have food and beverage going on. The other thing we're looking at is what do we do with the tennis courts, and we've got some options there that they will price out and include. We're looking at, clearly we need to fix and update the bathrooms, so we'll have an estimate to do that. And then we're also looking at what to do with the clubhouse in that area. And there may be an interesting twist that we can tie Paradigm's operations, the outdoor activities, into the pool house area, but that's kind of the latest add. And really it's kind of been sequential as we've gone along with the architect. So I'm going to reach back out to the architect again for that final push. And that should include, again, just some price concepts. We won't know exactly how much prices are until we go out for final bids. But we do want to give you the conceptuals, the drawings, the updates, and kind of the ideas of where we can go with the clubhouse.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Mayor McCom, members of the council, I've given Tony and Laura an almost impossible task, which is to figure out a way to maximize the existing building for conference and events in the future, which is one of your strategic plan goals. And doing it as cost effectively as possible. So right now it looks like, and we don't know yet, but the pro shop will have to be moved so that room can be converted into another event room similar to the one on the other side of the building. Obviously, the bathrooms in the structure need to be improved first, probably, and greatly enlarged. The good news is the kitchen area really can stay relatively the same, so that should save a lot of expense. But the pro shop operations can then move, over to the other side by the driving range then to do that. And of course, with the tennis courts gone, Laura mentioned the event, the opening event where the parking lot was full. And if you go by there, the parking lot is full a lot, actually. The tennis courts do lend themselves to parking, and I think we can improve and increase the parking there by using that space. And of course, that space is flat and could also be used for events going forward as well. So kind of viewing it as a multi-purpose thing. So we're not anywhere near yet with the architect in terms of having the drawings done, but we'll try to get a couple options to you all as soon as we can. And we'll be going over the budget. There is some money budgeted to begin this process for next fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition to converting the pro shop or moving it, are they looking at that screened-in porch that's connected to the main banquet room, like just expanding that part, so we can use it all year round?
So Mayor Pro Tem, yes and no. So there's a trick in that, just based on the way it's engineered. That's kind of where we started, was can we make it and increase, louvered doors or glass to be able to open it up and make it larger, but realize that's really temporary roofing. It's not part of the structure itself. So we're really kind of going through a couple different permutations. One, initially we started where we could move the pro shop and the bar into that corner, and then that would free up where the pro shop is kind of on the left side of the building as you go in. And now we're actually going to look at the pool house as a potential, partly because it's tied back to the range. You've got great access to, the first tee box. So there's a couple different options, and the same thing with the parking lot within where the tennis courts are. Clearly, that would allow us to put ADA parking right up against the facility for those people that would need it. So there's a couple different pieces and parts. The trick is the way it was engineered, and again, we walked it with the structural. It's a beautiful building, and we don't want to lose kind of that structural intent, but it would take a significant upgrade to clean that out with the load-bearing walls inside and out. And if you notice, the building is balanced, so everything on the left is on the right and vice versa. So it just makes it a very challenging property. And then it's elevated in the rear, so even trying to blow things out, we'd have to bring the land up. So it's just tough. And again, we're trying to do it as efficiently and phase it in both on monetary as well as the project size. So again, I wish we had an option where we could seat 200 folks. I just don't see that as an option. One of the things kind of out of the box is if you use the tennis courts and compact it into a parking lot, we could theoretically put a large tent there and actually support that. With the Wachukins event, we'll see where they go with it. So that's what I say. It is longer, but the good part is we're actually learning because they get to use the facility in different ways. So it's informing our decisions as we go along.
Any more questions, comments? Sorry. Yes, sir.
I have some about the golf course. I met about a week ago with Andrew Frazier, who's the Chief Innovation Officer for the golf course for Paradigm. And he had some really good news, I thought. He said they have over 600 memberships now. And Paradigm gave us an estimate of the revenues that were going to be generated by the driving range. And the revenues that they estimated were based on the driving range bringing in $275 a day. Well, now they're between $500 and $700 a day at the driving range. So that being said, and my desire for Paradigm to be successful, I would still propose that we close down the driving range at 8 o'clock at night rather than 9 o'clock at night. There was a really compelling study done by one of our residents. In fact, she sent a letter to us about 2 weeks ago. There are, on average, 2.5 people using the driving range after 8 o'clock. And most of those will probably already have a membership. So I don't think there would be a significant impact on Paradigm's revenue if we changed to close the driving range at 8 instead of 9.
Is that our call? Is that our call to adjust the hours?
Victoria, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councilmember Jones. So it's actually in Paradigm's contract that they are in control of the operations, and it's in the parks ordinance that the hours of operations are determined by them as well. So if we wanted to change the hours, we would have to change the contract and probably change the ordinance as well.
I thought the ordinance gave you the ability to change the hours of operation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Jones, that is correct, and I would allow them to continue their operation.
So you can change it to 8?
I have discretion with my approval of their proposed hours, that's correct, and I will allow them to operate in accordance to our ordinances.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Jones, it doesn't quite work like that. So they put together, they say, here's what hours we want to operate. And it goes to Laura, and Laura says, yes, that's fine. If there's a disagreement on the hours, then we would have to go back and renegotiate. So what Laura's saying is there wouldn't be a disagreement on the hours. They would not want to close the driving range at 8.
Well, it would have been nice if they would have been here tonight so we could have talked to them directly, but why would
Unfortunately, I
they be
believe they're
against that?
out of
It's not gonna
state this week.
affect their revenues.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
Why
that.
would they be against that? It's not going to affect their revenue, and we do have residents that would prefer for it to close at 8 rather than 9.
I don't think we can predict how this is gonna
Yeah.
affect the revenues.
I don't think, I wouldn't, plus, first, I wouldn't, how would I trust a study that's done by an outside agency? Or is it a trusted study? First thing, and just like you said, I don't think we can forecast.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intent, the way I understand it is, like Laura mentioned, the last one's sold at 9, if nobody's there, they close. If there's 1 or 2 people there, great. I think the intent is to get, obviously, to grow this, and the whole intent of putting more signage and things like that is to get more people aware of that it's actually open.
Yes.
So I wouldn't want to give anybody less opportunity to use it, especially those that work later in the day. Some people I've talked to don't get off work till 6, so they have only a few hours after work to do stuff like that. So I wouldn't want to limit them either. I understand, obviously, in this situation, everybody wants something, but I think for now, in my opinion, this is a good medium place to start with and go from there, because the range hasn't even been open a year yet. So I don't think we're at any kind of a point where we could say, well, this isn't working, or we got to adjust this, or we recommend something like that, in my opinion.
David?
Go ahead.
I saw the email you're talking about and where she counts how many people are using, yeah. I don't understand the burden, like what harm is it causing her? I didn't really understand any negative impact it had on her
Well,
or any other neighbors, so.
Some of the lights are still on at 9:45 in the evening.
But what's it doing to her? You know what I mean? What's it doing to
People
that
that live on the
neighbor?
golf course have bright lights still shining into their homes, apparently.
It sounds
I
like they
think-
don't have lights shining into their
It
homes.
sounds like, yeah, because the lights now for the range
They've been changed.
have been changed out and not floodlights, right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
We have not received any complaints of light intrusion since they've been open. So I'm not aware if that's occurring. It has not been brought to my attention.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, you pointed out some things that are still obviously some misconceptions, right? It's not an old men's club, right? That's not what's happening. It's as you can see, there's young people there, youth, ladies clinics. It's a diverse amount of people it's available to, and they're supporting those initiatives. So I'm glad they're doing that. As I mentioned before, I hate that sign on Highway 90 with that old broken down thing, because people still say like, well, I don't know. Like you said, people don't know that there's like a thing there, and I don't know what the move is there, because that's private property where it's at now, right? It's not our property. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the directional signage may look like. Because yes, there's some people that maybe aren't from the area that are just driving through. We have a lot of traffic on Highway 90, and I think that traffic count is just, we're missing some people because they don't know that's back there, you know? If you know, you know, but if you don't, it's kind of like, I think there's something back there, right? So I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like when it comes to some kind of attempt at some directional signage to help that. I know it's tricky because there's a neighborhood wall right there that says like the name of the neighborhood, so I don't know how you work that in. And like I mentioned, across the street, it's kind of tricky too because of that other property. I'm I'm glad to hear that the hours of the restaurant are 7 to 7 for now, and that's a good change, because I know for the longest time is people were not sure if they could get anything past 2 p.m., and so I'm glad that's going that way as well. And that portable bar is better than the idea of that little cart sitting out there in the meantime was a good, like, Band-Aid, but this is a much better solution, I think. It looks a lot nicer than just a cart out there. I think that's all I have. Thank you for breaking down, because a lot of questions have been asked of, like, well, so what's the status of what's gonna happen now where the courts were, where the pool was. So thank you for that update, so we at least have some idea what's going on there. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Okay, just to bring clarity, I guess, and balance as well. Councilman Jones, thank you so much for the questions, because I mean, sometimes we just want to understand what's going on, right? And we do get a lot of emails. So thank you for trying to, reply back to people that actually email from our residents and trying to answer their questions. With that being said, with the hours, and for clarity, in order for us to change the hours, you're stating that we have to change the agreement. Is that correct?
So the contract gives Paradigm control over the operations.
Okay.
That includes the hours. In the Parks and Recreation ordinance, it also gives the contracted golf management company the ability to set all of the hours subject to approval by the director. But what would happen is they set the hours and tell them to Laura. Laura says, yes, that looks fine, or if she says for whatever reason, no, it doesn't, they could negotiate and find something to agree on if they don't agree. So, but if we wanted to dictate to them that they have to close a part of their operations at a certain time, we would have to go back and renegotiate the contract.
Understood. Okay. Yeah. All right. To bring balance, Tony, thank you so much to you and your team. I know this is a really big project, and you guys are really working hard to get things squared away. So thank you again for all the information you guys put out today. It actually gave me clarity too as well. Okay, so thank you for that. Once again, too, we're on this panel and we ask questions only for clarity. It's one of those where if we don't understand, we ask. A lot of times we do get a lot of emails, once again, from our residents. We want to make sure that we actually respond to those respectfully. So with that being said, thank you all, for the balance, Tony and Councilman Jones, for your questions. Okay, and that's it.
I have one
Yes, sir.
other tiny issue.
It could be a big one. Go
What
ahead.
happens if a golfer hits a golf ball and it breaks one of the residents' windows? Who pays for the window replacement?
That is an excellent question that I know way too much about now, Mr. Jones. That actually should be the responsibility of the golfer who hits the errant shot. And a responsible golfer would probably go to a resident and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I just saw that I smashed your window in. I know that doesn't happen quite often, but unfortunately, it is not the responsibility of the city or Paradigm.
Mr. Jones, I think we have a resident who can.
Yeah, I can talk about that, because we live right off.
Me too.
We live right off of Hole 5, and we get people that try to cut through our yard. So we get lots of golf balls that hit our house. We've had one that hit our window, and it's kind of like we live on the golf course. We know that that's going to happen. This weekend we had somebody almost hit one of our dogs too. I mean, it's gotten more people are out there, and some of the people. They're just kind of trying the golf game out, and so we've gotten a lot more golf balls lately, which is not a bad thing. I mean, like, we'll gather them up and the dogs find them and stuff. But yeah, we know that we chose to live on the golf course, and people are golfing, so it's kind of up to us what happens. I mean, if we see somebody that does it, we can chase them down, I guess. But I mean, that's kind of the risk that we take to live there. So I feel like everybody that lives on the golf course kind of takes that risk as well, and they understand that. And then if I can add a little bit, since I'm talking about the presentation too, I do appreciate that. I think it's really great to have that update and then having it presented at a work session that's recorded, so anybody can go back and listen to it. It's really great. And I do see a lot more things going on, a lot more kids out there, and I always get emails about the ladies' clinics and stuff, which is really cool. It brings people out. People like somebody when people came to talk about the pool and how that's such a place to make friends and and meet new people. I feel like these clinics are doing the exact same thing. People maybe are not, they're maybe golfing is intimidating to them, and so they're like, I'm gonna try this clinic with my friends, and then they meet other people, and they just kind of can bond that way, adults and children alike. And then having the restaurant open longer hours is really great too, because before, when we would go hang out there and have some drinks or whatever, the kitchen was closed, and so people would order pizza from like Benny's or whatever to be delivered there. And now we can hang out and then we can order something from the kitchen. So I think that's really cool. So I really love seeing how things are progressing, and it hasn't been open very long. There's different changes that are being made along the way. Things will get better as we go, and I think I really love how things are progressing with this. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have one more question. Do we or Paradigm make the golfers aware that they're responsible should one of their balls break something or hurt
Yes.
someone? Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, yes, they do. They don't get like a little short briefing before they go out on the course. We have talked to them about, about the fact that they might have some newer golfers that need a little more like pregame information before they're heading out, and their starters are doing that. So now that they're having more starters actually starting the golfers off, that's where they kind of tell them about the course conditions and how long have you been playing, and make sure not to go into the property lines. So they are taking those moments, just the one-on-one. They're also trying to figure out what the right things are to like put in the carts, and that's been a discussion as well. I don't want to speak on behalf of their operation. I can't do that, but it is a point of conversation, and I have seen an increase in having those talks, especially with the newer golfers who are showing up there. I was just talking to one of the neighbors over there that said she's getting a lot more balls like in her rose garden. I know that rose garden, and I don't want anything to happen to those roses because they're really beautiful. But I do know that there's far more errant shots. I'm being much more careful now. I don't want to hit into anybody's rose garden or anybody's house. Errant shots do happen, but I can assure you that if it were someone like me, I would approach them or leave my information on their house and be a responsible golfer. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
As for me, I love this golf course. I played Arizona National last week, and I would put our golf course in that type of a rating, because Arizona National is great, ours is better. Really, really appreciate everything that Paradigm, yourself, Rec Department, y'all are doing. Take care of that. Keep showing us what right looks like.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. And if I could, just for Councilmember Jones, just what you were saying, my discussions with our partners, they really are just trying a lot of things right now, just seeing, what works and what doesn't work. And they certainly would not want to pay overhead for keeping open during hours that they didn't think that folks would want to show up and patronize their business. I think that as we see going on, I think right now they're just asking for a chance to figure out who their customers are and what the community would like for them to see. And I think we'll see them make several adjustments along the way.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is our Southeast Arizona Communications, CCOM, budget review. Yes.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, annually, when we go through the budget process, we also have to budget for CCOM as a principal. So we go through this and ask the director to come and make a presentation. Since I'm a member of the board, I can support her, but this is Ms. Tammy Jo Wilkins, our CCOM director, who's doing a fine job there. So, and we had this meeting with the supervisors last week as well. So.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tammy Jo Wilkins, Director of Southeastern Arizona Communications Center, also known as CCOM. We bring to you today some information on CCOM, just to share some statistics. Basically, our monthly incoming calls to our comm center. I put the year comparison of 2023 against 2024 so that you could see the increase of calls for service and admin calls and 911 calls that come into the center. At the end of the year of 2023, we ended with 186,000 calls into our center, which is 132,000 admin lines that have been answered and 53,399 911 calls. This last year, 2024, we ended the year with 145,244 admin calls and 50,479 911 calls for a total of 195,723. So you can see we're kind of trending up, probably about by 10,000 per year. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you think that's related to, I know you've been radio blast, putting the number out there. Has it started going up since that?
No, it hasn't. It's been a variety of different things depending on what's going on in the community with the various wildfires that we've been having.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit of comparison there. We get a lot of calls for wildfires. We get a lot of calls for accidents, suspicious activities, and such. And then because of our partnerships with all of the other police departments across the region, we get a lot of the admin calls for records, for information from officers, like when they get a ticket or something like that. So that shows some of our call increase.
That's right.
So some of our accomplishments throughout this last year, we are actually in discussions with Fort Huachuca to join us on a part-time basis. They're actually looking at a draft subscriber agreement as we speak, and we've given them some numbers on what that would cost for them to join us 50% of the time. 50% of the time would be evenings from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., all weekend and holidays. And then if we're needed to cover vacation or sick time, that would be included as well. Our staffing numbers actually are increasing, which is super exciting to see. We have 2 left in background. We're hoping to be able to provide them a offer letter here in the next 2 weeks. If they pass that background, then we'll be up at 19 full-time dispatchers. HR services did transition from the city to the county. I'm grateful for the partnership on both sides. I've learned a lot on the HR side of the house, and I understand the burden that I put on to the city of Sierra Vista's human resources. Cochise County Human Resources has been very open and transparent and willing to help me with anything I need, which is part of the reason why this has moved forward so quickly. Our hire time from date of application to date of offer letter is reduced to now 2 months versus 7 to 8 months. We're providing more training opportunities to staff for everything from mental health. We're making crisis negotiations a mandatory class, so every dispatcher is trained in crisis negotiations. And we just put 3 individuals through communications training officer, which is our training program. So we'll be moved from 3 training officers to 6 as of this month. So that's pretty exciting as well. Kind of helps with all the new people coming in at once. Work continues on adding capacity to the center. In November, we did add 4 new consoles, giving us a total of 10 911 stations. 9 fully functional radios, but 10 fully functional 911 consoles. So what that means is I can have 10 people answering the phone all at once in our center versus the 8 that we had last year. New subscriber fee schedule was drafted and approved by the JPA, or the Joint Powers Authority, to implement after our subscriber agreement contracts are revamped. We're looking and moving towards making this more CCOM specific. If you want to join CCOM for services, you're going to have to do things the CCOM way. And everybody across the county is completely on board with this. So there'll be more to come on this next year. The new subscriber fee schedule is very transparent. We went from a percentage with radios figure, which I cannot explain to you because I don't understand it, to a calls for service figure. For example, if Sierra Vista Police Department had 39,000 calls last year, entered into the Spillman CAD system. We would divide that number by $16, and that would be their new subscriber fee. So making it completely transparent and very easy to understand. We're working hard on continuing to build internal policy and building those standards across the county and in all of our partnerships. That comes with doing everything the same way for everybody across the board. We had quite a few challenges when Bisbee and Wilcox joined us because Bisbee does things one way, Wilcox does things one way, Cochise County Sheriff does it one way. We got everybody on the same sheet and everybody's doing it the same way now, which is not an easy task. Discussions being hosted with several outside agencies regarding joining CCOM. We were approached by the city of Safford and then Graham County as a whole. And they did come a couple weeks ago to host discussion with what it would look like to join CCOM in the future for dispatch services. That would include 911, police, and fire. This would be really easy to achieve if Graham County came over as a whole, especially after our radios are upgraded with the statewide interoperability that we're working towards, hopefully by the end of this summer. So there'll be more to come on that probably later in the year. We also worked in partnership with all of our schools in Cochise County. They got a grant through the Sheriff's Office called Navigate 360, which is an emergency management platform that was implemented in all the schools and all the classrooms. And what that means to everybody is that it's a computer program where they can hit a button and send off an alarm. We get an automated call in dispatch saying that they've got an emergency at a specific location, and we immediately dispatch somebody to go to that location right down to the specific room number. It is still being tested as we speak, but it is online, and it is a very interesting platform if anybody wants to come and check it out. This is an example of what we're looking at for our fiscal year 26 revenue contributions. The differences between fiscal year 25 and 26. The only changes are with county and with Sierra Vista at the top. County went from $1,034,000 to $1,055,000, and then Sierra Vista went from $964,000 to $985,000. For the ending total of $3,175,448. Part of what we take care of and what we look for funding on is the 911 equipment. And it's not just within CCOM, it is for Benson and Douglas PSAPs as well, or their public safety answering points. I am the 911 coordinator for the entire county. So we put in this grant to cover the 911 equipment, not only for CCOM, but for Benson and Douglas. This year's grant submission was for $295,572.92. This covers all of the AT&T equipment, all of the next-gen 911 technology, and all of our mapping, our Vesta. So we'll find out hopefully in the next month if we receive that. This is our budget by category, and for fiscal year 26, what we're requesting is a slight increase on personnel, $2,181,852. Travel and training did go up. More people means more travel, more training, so $20,000. Professional services, $37,000. The utilities went up slightly at $65,868. Our association memberships stayed the same, which is good. Our IT services are at $234,544. Building maintenance, $28,550. Our legal and insurance is at $35,000. Supplies, which is a little bit of equipment and basic business supplies that are required for day-to-day, it's $170,134. And then capital, that's our SUA Motorola maintenance at $401,100. for a grand total of $3,175,448 for this next budget year. And then this last slide is just to give you an example of some of the technology we have access to. With our Next Gen 911, we have access to seeing the back end of what's happening in our communication center and making sure with, like, for example, this slide, that I have enough people on any given moment. So on this slide, it shows Sunday through Saturday on one side, and across the bottom, it's from midnight to 11 p.m. or 2,300 hours. And it does show us in those numbers how many people I should have staffed at any given point just to answer the phone. That does not include the radio. I've seen this in the red where in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, there's 7 and 8 people required to answer the phone, and that could be because of a wildfire or an accident on I-10 or something like that. And then in the middle of the night, 1 or 2. So that helps us figure out on a monthly basis how we're going to adjust our staffing needs at any given point. Right now, we're at 4 mandatory during the day, and we go down to 2 staffing at night after 2 a.m. That is changing with people coming in. We're going to go to 5 by day and 3 minimum at night, 24/7. So depending on the amount of traffic will depend on the extra bodies that we have on the floor. And that's the end of my information. I'm ready for your questions.
Benson, are they on the verge of coming over, or are they almost there?
I've been trying really hard with discussion. Chief Volker is holding out. So if you guys have any pull over there, let me know.
Yes, sir.
Right. Mayor McCaw, members of the council, just a few things, and great job, Tammy Jo. And regarding Benson, we have 2 communities in Cochise County. If you remember, it just started with Sierra Vista in Cochise County, so then Fry, and then Huachuca City, and the enterprise has grown over time. There are 2 left. One is Douglas, and they have their own unique issues. One is their location, and the other is their need for bilingual services, so which is a little harder for us to provide here. So we do have a mutual aid agreement with them. So in the event that we have issues here, they have a seat there in Douglas, so they can back us up, and conversely, we can do the same for them as well. So they are actually a part of the system. They're just not a subscriber. Benson has a couple years left on their agreement to be a PSAP. At the end of that, I don't believe that their call volume will meet the state requirements for maintaining a PSAP, in which case they will have to come over to us at that time. So if we're patient, they will come. So we'll just let that lie for now.
Yes, sir.
Graham County, we met with. I was fortunate to be able to attend that meeting in Safford as well. Of course, if they come on board, they will have a subscriber agreements with us as well. So how does the budget work then? Tammy Jo showed you the cost models and the line items in the budget. We take that number and we subtract all the current subscriber agreements because they are locked in terms of what they pay to CCOM right now. The city and county pay the balance of that, so we split that up via formula. So our number kind of fluctuates. Of course, as we get more subscribers, the amount that city and county have to pay in goes down as a result of that. The other thing that we benefit from is getting grants and outside funds. By working together as a group, we are far more successful to get grant funding to assist in our operation for radios, equipment, things like that. And a lot of credit goes to Sheriff Daniels and his ability to help bring that money to CCOM's operation. So as a result, we have a very, very robust and a very technologically advanced center where we're providing a lot of services that you would never see in other rural areas. So it is a great operation. It is working the way it was originally envisioned to work, and now we're looking to expand beyond the borders of Cochise County. Santa Cruz County elements have also expressed an interest in joining as well. We can only absorb so much at a time because of staffing and that kind of thing. So, and it takes time to bring people on board. But I'm very optimistic about the future. This has really been a success story, and it's reflected in our budget because the numbers that we've had over the past number of years has really not fluctuated much at all. So in an era where we've had high inflation and costs have gone up in a lot of areas, this could be and it is a very expensive operation to run, but our contributions have stayed relatively flat this whole time.
I think Vincent is holding out until their PSAP is done.
Yes, so if
And Mr. Mayor, they
if we
did-
build it, they will come.
Yes, sir.
With the new subscriber fee schedule that we developed, they got a copy of what their potential numbers would be. So I'm hoping that that gets to their mayor and they get to see the cost savings.
They will all save money when
Yes.
it's going over.
We'll make sure it gets in.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll text them after this.
Or, yeah, even sooner.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you getting the update on Graham County. Obviously, there's always some holdouts there if only the city of Safford is interested. So I'm assuming there's some other smaller towns that are holding out for whatever reason as well.
Graham County is actually the owner of all of the equipment up there. So if Safford was to join us by themselves, it would cost them to build up their infrastructure.
Okay.
So we proposed some numbers to Graham County as a whole, Pima, Thatcher, and Safford, and it would be a tremendous cost savings for them to join us.
Okay. Good selling points for them, hopefully. And it's good to hear that Fort Huachuca is going to join for 50% of the time. Thanks for breaking that down, what that means. It wasn't too long ago where we were losing dispatchers to Fort Huachuca because
Yes.
for different reasons. So I'm glad to see that's not happening as much. For a while too, there was, depending on where you called in the city, you may get connected to Fort Huachuca's dispatcher and vice versa. Is there still some bleed over like that happens? That cause any delays or anything?
Councilmember Rodriguez, they actually upgraded to Next Gen this past year,
Okay.
so I think the bleed over has diminished a little.
Okay.
I haven't heard very much about it.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
I got one.
Oh, go ahead.
The 9/11 calls went down by 3,000. Is that a trend, or is that just in the normal fluctuation in numbers?
That's a normal fluctuation of numbers. This community is quite unique. I haven't seen anything like it before. We get more admin numbers or admin callers than we do 911 callers, and the reason for that is they don't want to tie up a 911 line with their emergency, even though they might need CPR for a loved one. They're still calling the main number instead of the 911 number.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you so much for coming and presenting this to us and breaking everything down and the comparison of the calls and then the various accomplishments. I think it's really great to see some additional training that's being provided to them there. I think that gives them an advantage and helps everybody. It seems like not very long ago things were not so good in the CCOM world, so I'm really happy and pleased to see how everything is looking good going forward. So thanks for it. So thank you for all that you've done, all the work that you've put into making things run smoothly.
Thank you.
Now, for your new subscribers that you're reaching out to get, do you have a supply of radios that are you not the volume, well, yes, the volume of radios that you're going to need?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you, Mayor. The portables they're going to, or the handhelds, they're going to have to be responsible for on their own. And they have been provided information on how they could apply for some grant opportunity. But if they do join us and we apply as a regional opportunity for those grants, we might be able to get it versus if they apply for it individually. But that is part of the discussion. Safford did indicate that they did have some new radios, so that would be helpful with the transition.
Okay. But those that are already subscribing are already getting the new radios?
Yes, sir.
Shit, got me freaked out.
Just, I want to thank you for all your hard work because I know the last couple years since you've been in that role, it's been challenging. But yeah, like has been said, it's looking better, and I really appreciate you taking the time to keep us updated every year.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thanks for your continued support.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And our next one is the balanced budget update, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. Jen and the budget team, led by Victoria, have been working very hard to get your budget balanced, and we're pretty close to being there now. So that's pretty good news. So just give you a chance to kind of go over where all the funds are today, and then I think we can proceed with putting the budget book together and then proceeding with your formal meetings. So go ahead, Jen.
Mayor, members of council, so today we're going to do something a little different for our presentation. We mentioned a lot the phrase as we move through the budget process, but today we're going to kind of dig a little deeper into what that means. So this is our budget calendar. Officially, the budget season begins in January, where we have early to mid-January is the budget kickoff meeting with the department heads, the division managers, and anyone that's going to be touching the budget. So this is where we go over priorities for the next fiscal year and any type of procedural items that we need to do, such as how to enter, what forms that you need, and things like that. After that, the capital improvements and development manager will start holding meetings with each department and start going over like what they need for capital items, because sometimes one item will need procurement, they'll need facilities, they'll need other departments to collaborate with in order to get the actual proposal together. And then Fleet will also meet with each department for the same reason, to make sure the needs are being met for each department. The legislative updates also start in January. And then in February, we receive the numbers from the county assessor's office, and this is how we calculate the new property tax levy rate. After that, personnel and facility and IT requests are due to the respective departments so that they can start their analysis and help with the proposals as well. And then the capital and the city council will be presented with the mid-year budget review, but depending on when the auditors are finished, sometimes you can see we do it in March as well. So after that, at the very end of March, we'll have the capital and the fleet requests due to in the systems. And I'll show you examples of what the capital and the personnel look like in the next slides. In March, the grant proposals are due to the grants administrator, so we have grant projects spread out between several funds. It could be general, it could be transit, airport, HERF, all of them play. O&M is due in Munis, and the departments will put that in themselves, and that's due mid to end March. And then in April, we're going to start all the budget work sessions as you've seen. So in revenue and debt projections begin in January, but presented to council in April as well. And that's also when the League of Arizona Cities and Towns will send their original preliminary projections about the state share revenue about the end of March, maybe early April. So after O&M is submitted and reviewed, the budget team will meet with all the departments individually to see if we need to make any adjustments and to make sure all the strategic plan priorities and any needs and safety needs are met. So May, as you can see, is really busy. That's when we balance all 21 funds. And that's when we put together the tentative budget book so you guys can have some light reading over your Memorial Day. So oftentimes, as we're putting together the book, there's more changes. And so anytime we have changes, we'll highlight that in the next work session for you to see. After council has had a moment to review, we do our individual meetings with you guys. And then that way we can go over any questions that you have or incorporate any suggestions or focuses that you want us to go for. You're going to, that happens in mid-June. And then on or before the third Monday in July per statute, city will adopt the tentative budget. The tentative budget for the city, though, we typically do at the end of June. So the tentative budget is important because it sets the cap for the next fiscal year for the final budget. The final budget can be equal to or less than the tentative budget, but cannot exceed it. So at this point, if you're going to add something, we have to subtract it somewhere else. The final adoption of the budget is in end of July, with the adoption also of the property tax levy shortly after in August. After that, we have about 90 days to complete and finalize the final budget document and then submit it to the Government Finance Officers Association. Any question on the budget calendar?
I wish the federal government had one that went that smooth as well.
Yeah.
They don't have the word balance on there. So.
That was a good one.
They need a map.
So I mentioned personal requests are due to HR in the beginning of February. So these are for new personnel and any reclassifications that the departments are requesting for current positions. Departments will submit a memo with a justification, a job description, and a job description questionnaire to HR so that they can start their analysis and see where the classification and the salary placement can be. After HR is done with that, they'll forward the justification and all of their analysis and paperwork to Victoria and the budget team. And then once we go through, we present that to council, as you've seen in the previous presentations. So HR will also take 1/3 of all the current positions and do a market study. And when they do that, they are looking at the same or a similar position in a comparable city, or as close as we can get to a comparable city, looking at qualifications, the job duties and skills, and they'll make note of the minimum to the maximum salary range.
And then, what do you do when our cities that they're chosen based off size, right? Or budget? What if they don't have the same job?
We find the closest job either in that city, or we go to another city that's a little bit outside of our population size range that does have that, and then that's where we use that geographic difference that I'll talk about in a second. So the geolocation percentages that you see on this one, thanks, stem from the Economic Research Institute software program. That's what we use. There's a specific formula that the software uses based on the average salary, population, cost of living, and other things to determine what the city or town's ERI indicator number is. So the geographic difference percentage is determined by the calculation using our city's ERI number to another city's ERI number, and that's where you see that negative 0.8%, the 4.9%, and the 1.5%. So then they take that difference and then adjust the minimum and the maximum ranges to that last 3 columns for the geographic adjustment range for the minimum to the maximum. So they take those 3 columns and then average those, and then compare what our salary range is to that new average based off the geographical differences. And so we use that to determine whether or not we need to shift the salary in that range or not. Any questions on the personnel? So the city uses an online platform called OpenGov to streamline the capital improvement projects process. So this is an example of what the proposals page looks like in our software. So each proposal includes the project start year, the location, a description, justification, any alternatives that need to be considered, the strategic plan initiative, if applicable, and any future cost and savings to O&M, what fund it's impacting, and finally, what project priority ranking that the department states it is. So the budget team works with each department to determine the priorities and necessities, keeping in mind safety and any strategic plan initiatives take precedence. And then the list is presented to council, and so that's what you've been seeing at every presentation. So anything not approved for this next fiscal year is automatically moved to the next fiscal year unless the department says it's no longer a need, and then we delete it. So as you can see here, that some of the start years show fiscal year 27, and there's also some in there for fiscal year 28 and 29. So this helps with our long-term financial planning to get an idea of what we're going to need in the future. So if we simplify all of this, we start with the revenue in January to see how much we can spend. We refine those numbers. We take out personnel and O&M after we determine what those needs are, and then what's left is capital. And I say that's simple because City has 21 funds to balance. So some play well with others, some don't. Some can transfer into others, some can't. So that's why it's a lot of fun. So the governmental funds are the general fund and the capital improvements fund. Then we have 14 special revenue funds. That's going to be HERF, transit, police special revenue, grants, airports, judicial enhancement, donations, all the development impact fee funds, CCOM at the moment, and then MPO. We also have 2 enterprise funds. That's refuse and sewer. So for enterprise funds, they must generate enough revenue from charges and services and fees in order to balance with the expenditures. We also have a debt service fund and then the internal service funds that maintain the self-funded insurance. So I mentioned the transferring in and out earlier. So you can't balance certain funds like the general fund, transit, CIF, HERF, grants, until you know how much you need for all these transfers. And so certain grants, the transit, and some HERF require a city match from the general fund or the capital improvements fund. So as we're determining what the transfers are, that's how we can help balance the rest of the funds. So sometimes that's very fluid in and out of each one. So we've also mentioned allocations in previous presentations. So those are calculated after the general fund personnel and O&M are determined and stable. So those figures are taken out of the general fund and then put into HERF and refuse and sewer. And then those enterprise funds and HERF can be balanced. So if there's any changes to O&M and personnel, then we have to recalculate those allocations and then rebalance the funds. So as you can see, the balancing the funds is a very dynamic process. There's a lot of adapting, there's a lot of evolving, and then we update you guys with the numbers as soon as we can. So let's move on to the funds that we balanced so far. So the updated total for general fund is $54,335,914. And we showed you what last year's budget numbers were for fiscal year 25, just as a comparison. So increases to personnel do include all the reclasses and new positions that we showed you in the last presentation, and also the 2% step increase for full-time and part-time employees. Departments did an awesome job with the O&M, keeping it down. Everybody knows the rising costs. And so we will actually present in the tentative budget book all of the major increases and decreases in O&M and list them out by department. The updated capital list is on the next slides.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Where does the general fund 54 million come from in terms of the revenue sources? Do you take a little bit out of each revenue source to come up with that money, or where does that 54 million come from?
It comes from a lot of revenue streams. So the major one is going to be the city sales tax, but then you also have your state shared revenues. We have charges and fees that we do for the city. There's also intergovernmental agreements. There's grants. There's, oh boy.
Do you take a little bit from each one, or?
Yes and no.
It's so. Would it be easier to say it's just the non-restricted, because we have funds we can't put in there? Everything else goes into the general, right?
Yes, and I can actually give you the breakdown. I have actually what goes into the general fund for revenue and what doesn't, and goes into the other funds. I can actually give you that chart.
Great.
Yeah.
Mayor McCaw, members of council, as you're aware, state law dictates a lot of where this funding goes. So when you're talking about our major revenue sources, primarily sales tax, that pretty much all goes into either the general fund, and then you have your own policy set where $0.005 of that goes into the capital improvements fund. So, and those are really the only places that goes other than allocations. HERF is all gasoline tax, basically. So that's kind of where that goes, and that state law dictates that as well. And then obviously your enterprise funds are your user fee based revenue. So it's not really like taking a portion out. It's really kind of just where they go by category.
Okay.
I think it'll be, when you see the book, it'll be easier to understand.
Yeah, it'll all be in there.
And in our revenue projection presentation, there was a table that laid out for general fund what each revenue stream was. So we can go back to that as well.
Where the money went from the general fund?
No, what revenue goes into the general fund.
Okay.
And I can send you the chart where I use the projections for that. So highlighted changes to the general fund revenue, we increased it $10,000 for the state grants. That's for the child safety seat grant. Fuel sales, Munis had an update that made it a little difficult to transport the fuel sales into where it needed to be. So IT worked hard, fixed it. So we found out that based on actuals, we needed to increase it by $110,000. Local government payments increased due to several contract updates.
Has Munis ever been easier to use? Has there ever been any help? Has it always been difficult? Like, has it gotten any better?
I don't know of actually any ERP that is user-friendly, but,
I've never heard anything good about Munis system at all.
Yeah, we always hear people complaining
One of those
about
systems like, why do we use it? Why isn't there something better that we can? I mean, I'm sure there's a whole lot of explanation. There's a whole meeting probably, but it just sounds frustrating from like, why do we have a useless system like that?
Yeah.
That is
Every
just,
ERP has their pros and cons, and after talking to many other cities, there's none that are better. They all have their challenges. So
You could certainly pay more, though.
yeah, you could.
Thank you. Just like I said, everyone said they love Munis. Never heard it.
So we increased the lease revenues depending on actuals, and then also the same thing for performing arts revenue and then investment income. So the transfer in from donations increased because we have a new donation. And then the notes payable, we have the 1.3 million. That's for the fire truck. So since we have an 18-month lead, we're putting it in as finance, but when it actually comes in, most likely if we can pay for it out of the general fund, we'll pay for it out of the general fund. The reduced transfer out to transit, that's not really a reduction. So what happens is in the beginning of the budgeting, we keep the old transfer out number as a placeholder until we go through all the capital items and the personnel and the O&M, and then we determine what the needs are for fiscal year 26. So now that we know what those needs are and what we actually need for the transfer out, the new number is put in, and that was actually $123,000 less than last year. So it says reduction, but it's not really a reduction. Same thing for the transfer in from CIF. Once we determine what the capital projects are, that determines what that transfer in from capital improvements fund is, which happens to be 1.2 million less than last year. And that's because last year we did that ACO transfer for the expansion for 2 million. So that was a big one. The updated list for the general fund capital items, the only difference from the last time is the Cove structural improvements should be done by the end of the fiscal year for $50,000, so that was taken out. And the vehicle outfitting needs need to be carried over for next year, so the $30,000 was added in. Are there any questions on general fund? This is also the updated vehicle list, just to show what the carryover ambulance and the pumper truck is. Capital improvements had only one change from the last presentation. So Roadrunner Park construction expenditure is now listed at $3 million versus the $1,753,918 as last time. So $1.5 million of that $3 million that we have listed now is a grant opportunity from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And so the city match is $1.5 million. So we're going to take the leftover remaining $253,918 that we were going to use towards Roadrunner Park, and that's actually going to be shifted to the HERF Fund in order to do the Julio Cesar Phase 1 project.
Yay.
Yeah. Any questions on capital? So HERF now reflects the current carryover amounts, as you're going to see on the next slide. So Fry North Garden construction is now at $2.2 million. So neighborhood annual street maintenance was listed at 1.5 before, but it has been consistently coming in at $1 million every year. So right now we budgeted the $1 million for the neighborhood annual street maintenance and then moved the $500,000 that was there before to add to the $253,000 for the Julio Cesar Phase 1 project.
And thank you if you came up with adding the word neighborhood to that line. Was it you?
That was Victoria. Yeah.
Thank you. That really does help, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the MLK construction is now carryover at $223,000, and that is all the changes for the HERF Fund. Transit is now balanced with the general fund and the capital improvement fund transfers in. So I changed up this slide a little bit from the last time. So what happened was previously some of the specialized supplies was listed in and they weren't really capital, so we took those out. And then we also combined some of the projects together because before they were listed out by different funding years. So the one bus could have been 2 different funding years, and so it was listed kind of twice, and it looked really confusing. So right now we have the bus shelter items, the 3 bus shelter enhancements combined for the $202,000. The B2G Now and LCP Tracker software, that was also multiple funding years, and it just looked odd for the software, so we combined it to the $135,000. And then the vehicles, we're only doing 1 small bus, 2 vans, and 2 bus refurbishments for the $510,000. And the same thing, it was broken out by different fundings. And the only new items from last time is the restroom partition installation for $10,000 and to the multi-use path on Highway 90 between 7th and Coronado. That's something we're going to try for next year. Any questions on the new transit? Debt projections are still the same. The only change is that we added the fiscal agent fees for $4,000, and the whole debt is paid out of the capital improvements fund. Future budget issues. So retention of personnel is always a priority. PSPRS and street maintenance are always an ongoing issue. And then we've already discussed the increases to sewer and refuse rates. The next work session, we're going to have all the funds balanced for you. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Comment really quick. I appreciate you coming and presenting this to us. I really liked how it started out with the graphics of the process and how you went through that, and then how you kind of broke down like the personnel thing and how it's not just somebody in a room is like deciding like what we're going to do, how breaking down how that process is, and then as far in the next page too. So that as far as budget presentations go, I think it started off pretty fun. So I appreciate it.
I enjoy budget. It's very fun. I know I'm probably alone on some of that, but
It's a good thing she does, because I don't think anybody else wants to do it.
I'm sure they don't. Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you for taking the time to explain a couple of those things differently than they've been explained to us in the past. I appreciate that.
thank you.
And we can't wait to read the book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Counselor?
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So tomorrow at 3:30 up here in the conference room, will be the Transportation Commission will be meeting. It's always great to see anybody that wants to join us. There's spots available for commission members, so if you're curious or you know somebody that might be interested, send them here tomorrow at 3:30 up in the conference room. It has we have a really great agenda too.
Any other future meetings? And requests from the council. Well, future discussion items, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw. Just one thing on your list right now, and that's, as Jen just said, the rest of the balance funds for the budget.
All right. I think that's it for tonight. Any other questions, comments? All right. We are adjourned. See you on Thursday.
No.